Hello, everybody. Welcome into Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I'm Matthew Miller. This is D4 Sports. How's it going, D4?
It's going, buddy. Excited to get into this. Football season for us Texas Longhorns is right around the corner. ULM coming up this Saturday. Couldn't be more excited. Excited to see what we're going to put on the field, and let's get into it.
Yeah, 100%. Week 0 is nice and everything. Gets a little taste of it in your mouth. But, man, this first week, especially with Thursday, you got the backyard brawl with West Virginia, Pittsburgh. It's going to be phenomenal. And then from there on out, we're going to have a fantastic Saturday slate full of games. And obviously, our Texas Longhorns playing ULM should be hopefully an easy game for us. We'll see what happens, though. But let's talk about the Big 12 here for a little bit. You know, it's a wide open league, in my opinion, this year. There's a lot of teams that could win. In my opinion, I think there's Texas, there's Oklahoma State, there's Kansas State, and there's Baylor. Those are the 5 teams I'm looking at. If you're talking about tiers, that would be my tier 1 of who could possibly win. Obviously, I think anyone in the league could win it other than probably Kansas and Iowa State. I could see worlds where West Virginia and someone like that does win it, but it's going to take a lot. It's going to take JT Daniels to have a Herculean effort, a Heisman-type season. Would you agree with that assessment, D4?
Yeah, I think it's as wide open as it's been in recent years. Like you said, with the Baylors, the Oklahoma States, the Texases, the Oklahomas, and Kansas State. I say Kansas State would be the bridge to the next tier. I would agree with that, and like I said, it's wide open. It's anybody's game. There's a lot of sunshine pumpers out there for their teams, of course, but we'll see how it goes, and it's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm. And we'll jump right into things. So I asked D4 and myself to come up with a list of players or just one player who could possibly win or will win, who we think will win the Offensive Player of the Year in the Big 12. For me, it came down to 2 players. It was Bijan Robinson and Deuce Vaughn. I think these are the 2 best overall players in the Big 12, and they both play on the same side of the ball. They both play the same position. Last year, Deuce Vaughn had over 1,800 yards total and a total of 22 touchdowns, a monster year for him. Bijan Robinson, 1,400 yards total and 15 touchdowns. I expect Bijan Robinson, he only had 295 yards receiving last year. I expect him to up that. I expect him to get more involved in the passing game. I think Deuce Vaughn's numbers are basically they're going to be at this year, and I expect Bijan Robinson to take home the Offensive Player of the Year in the Big 12. I think Deuce Vaughn 100% can. What about you, D4?
I think it's going to be a 3 player race. I would have Bijan at 1, Deuce at 2, and Dylan Gabriel at 3. Dylan Gabriel is a very capable quarterback. They have weapons on offense there. If that's their identity, passing the ball this year, I look for them to do that. But I look for us in Texas to pound the rock with Bijan, and of course Deuce Vaughn is going to be a workhorse when it comes to Kansas State. I think he had a ton of carries last year. So, but my number 1, I'm going Bijan Robinson.
Okay, so we're on the same page there. Next, we're going to talk about the Defensive Player of the Year. I think the Big 12 gets too much hate, in my opinion, for the defense they played, especially the last couple of years. They played very good defense, in my opinion. And also, you're going against very offensive-minded, heavy teams. So, and very unique concepts that most schools, up until recently, didn't really run. So now college football is kind of caught up, and you see the Big 12 defensively has gotten better as well. So to me, it came down to 2 guys. It came down to Felix Uzama for Kansas State at defensive end. He had 11 sacks last year, played great for Kansas State. He's back off the edge for Kansas State. And then another edge player who led the Big 12 in sacks in Will McDonald. I went with Felix Uzama just because I think Kansas State's going to be way better than Iowa State. And at the end of the day, you have to win football games. They look at that when it comes to stuff like this. So I'm going to go with Felix Uzama. What about you, D4?
Yeah, I'm going to go Will McDonald on this one, and Will McDonald the 4th. Iowa State lost a lot on that defense this year. I think he's going to be the premier pass rusher. Yes, they will game plan, around him, but I think the defensive scheme will be able to set him free on that edge, and I think he's a disruptive force, and I think he may be one of the, if not the best defensive player in the Big 12.
And as Texas fans, I think we should throw out our opinion on our defense here, and who do you think could win it from there? Obviously, DeMarvion Overshone definitely steps out to me. I think he can get multiple sacks now that they're moving him around and playing him off the edge. He's obviously going to play linebacker as well, so he might come up with some interceptions, some fumble recoveries, forced fumbles. That would be the guy if I had to choose someone from Texas. But I don't, in my opinion, I don't see Texas being great on defense this year. I think it's going to be at probably an average defensive team. So what about UD4? Would that be your pick from the Longhorns as well?
Definitely, but I would also throw Deshaun Jameson in there as well. He's had a tremendous spring, tremendous fall camp, getting picks all over the place. I wouldn't doubt if he snuck into the conversation when it comes to at least first team Big 12 coming at the end of the year, if not in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year.
100%. And another thing about Deshaun Jameson, he's going to return punts and kicks. So he's always got the chance to bring one back to the house. I think he's had like 3 or 4 over his career taken back just from penalties, but he's returned 3 as well. So he's definitely one of those guys that can go off there. And if he does that, let's say 2 to 3 times this year, has 4 or 5 interceptions with a pick 6, and he's locked down, there's definitely a chance there, especially if the Texas defense can take that step and just become an average defense. And then also if Texas has a good year overall. Next up, we're going to go with a little bit of a prediction here. Like we said, the Big 12 is wide open. 2 teams, the top 2 teams of the Big 12, who we think will play for it. One of these is going to be a surprise for me. I'm high on this team. I've gotten higher as the season or as the offseason's continued, as we're going into the season. And I could be 100% completely wrong about this team, but I'm going to go for it anyways. Why not? I'm saying Kansas State will make an appearance in the Big 12 championship game at 9-3, 8-2, or 7-2 in the Big 12. I think Chris Klieman is just poised for a breakout year as the head coach of Kansas State. He had great success at North Dakota State, bringing in championships and building that culture. I think it's time for him to do it at Kansas State with Deuce Vaughn. I think Adrian Martinez brings a little bit more of a dynamic with his running ability. You can do little bit more read option with Deuce Vaughn. So I'm going with Kansas State. The other one is a familiar face. They won it last year. I'm going to go with Baylor. I think they go 10-2, 7-2 in the Big 12. I think there's a logjam in the Big 12, and I think there's going to be a lot of tiebreakers, but I think these are the 2 teams that end up there. And I don't know who's going to win yet, but I would probably go with Baylor as repeating for Big 12 as Big 12 champ. So I have Kansas State, Baylor with Baylor on top. What about UD4?
That's a very good pick. I will replace. I think Baylor is there. But I will replace Kansas State with Oklahoma State. I think Baylor takes it in the end, but I think Oklahoma State's slightly better than Kansas State, and I think that Oklahoma, as much as I call them sunshine pumpers, want to believe that they're going 10-2 and winning the Big 12. You cannot lose everything that you did and have that.
100%. And that would be a rematch. And it was a really good game last year. Came down to the last play at the 1-yard line, basically. It did. And Baylor ended up winning. So that'd be an interesting game. And it would be, and you said you had Baylor winning again, correct, D4?
Yes.
Okay, so we both have Baylor repeating. I just think they brought in a bunch of transfers on the defensive side of the ball to kind of reload there. And I think Dave Aranda's a terrific coach. And then you have Blake Shapen taking in for Jerry Bohannon. I just think they're going to reload, and I think they're going to be better than most people think they are after losing some talent. And the Big 12 also, like I said, took a step back overall from the top teams. There's a lot of top teams this year, or teams we would put in the group ones here that could win it. And it's hard to pick. It would not surprise me if any of the top 5 teams that we put in that tier won it. And it wouldn't shock me if West Virginia just went all world this year and they won it somehow. But that would be like, if I wanted to push another team into that tier, that would be the last team, in my opinion. Let's get into some comments here, what the people think. Exploring with Ben and Sam, thank you for the super chat. It really helps out the channel. Please hit that like button and subscribe down below as well at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. That really helps out as well. Let's go Jayhawks. Hey, I think they're going to have a better year than most years, but I still don't think they're going to win probably more than 3 games. What about UD4? Do you think Kansas will bounce back?
I know Ben. He's taking a little dig.
Okay.
He's taking a little dig at us. I do think Kansas is going to be much improved this year. I do not have them at the bottom of the food chain when it comes to the Big 12 this year. I actually have them above Texas Tech and TCU.
Oh, okay. I could,
Surprisingly,
yeah, I could see them win multiple conference games this year. Jalen Daniels at quarterback, once he came in, had played really well. He played spectacular versus Texas. And I could definitely see it. I mean, I like Lance Leipold as a head coach, so we'll see what the Jayhawks do this year.
let's see. Will Texas be one of those wins? No. It is revenge time in Lawrence, Kansas this year.
I'm going to be honest. I would be shocked if Texas doesn't win that game by 4+ touchdowns. I just don't see us. We're going to be so motivated going in that game after what happened, because it is embarrassing to lose at home to Kansas last year. And then hopefully, if we can stay healthy, I really see us winning that by at least 4 touchdowns.
Yes, I agree 100%.
Okay, so a lot of talk about Oregon and Georgia here. I think the spread on that game is like 17.5 points towards Georgia, and it's in Atlanta. I actually think Oregon's gonna cover that. I don't think they're gonna win the game, but I don't like Georgia's offense. I never have. I never will. You have Stetson Bennett, who is enemy, and then the rest of the guys, Jermaine Burton, your best receiver, transferred. Obviously, they have a great running back room, but I think Dan Lanning will improve that Oregon defense, and I think the offense will be good enough to compete for a little bit. So I think they cover that, but I still think Georgia wins probably by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that Oregon will cover as well, but let's not get it twisted. Georgia has the best tight end room
Yes.
that has been in college football in quite some time. They're going to create mismatches. You got Brock Bowers, you got Gilbert, and Washington. Washington's LeBron James in football cleats. The way he's built. Brock Bowers is a matchup nightmare. I think Oregon's going to have to take one of their best defenders and match up with him, and that's going to take him out of the game. Georgia's always going to have they're always going to have a stout defense. They're always going to have a power running game. And I look for them to be more of the same. I look for Georgia to slow the clock down, pound the ball, but I still expect Georgia to come out with a victory.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think people need to realize Cristobal was a great offensive line recruiter at Oregon. We know that as Texas fans because he had Kelvin Banks, and I believe Cam Williams was also there as well before he left. And they were pretty good at offensive line last year. I don't know how many people they lost on that offensive line. If they didn't lose anyone, I think they can at least stand up to Georgia a little bit. I'm not saying they can dominate them or anything, but I think they can stand up to them. And I think that'd be my key to the game. If they can protect that and then just have an average game on the ground, I think they can pound this game to where they're not going to get completely blown out.
100%. Yes, Eric, we could do a whole video on that, and we may come out with one of those later on this week.
And Eric, what is your opinion? What do you think Oregon is going to be this year? Do you think they can compete for the Pac-12 championship under Dan Lanning in his first year, or do you think that this is more of a rebuilding year for Oregon? I know the Pac-12 isn't great, and I think everyone for some reason is just penciling Utah to win it, and I can see why. I think Utah's a very good team, but I mean with UCLA, I think UCLA is going to have a decent year, and then also USC. I think if Caleb Williams can do what he does, can have a spectacular year and possibly win the Pac-12 as well. I think Caleb Williams, right behind Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, is the third best quarterback in the country. 100%. Utah is Utah did dominate him. That's why wasn't 100% sure if any of those guys are coming back. And that is Oregon is biggest issue under previous coaches. I don't know if Dan Lanning will change that. Usually when they get hit in the mouth, they tend to fall down and never get back up. So we'll see what happens if that's changed at all just under the first year under Dan Lanning, or if he's going to have to build that over time. We'll see what happens.
Kirby Fowler does have a point. The Oregon Ducks do struggle against teams that utilize tight ends, with Utah and Stanford. Utah has two killer tight ends, Kincaid, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but that's something they did struggle with, and I'll look for Georgia to use those tight ends as mismatches, and I don't know if Dan Lanning will have an answer for those tight ends.
Yeah, my only question with the tight ends, I don't know. You can use them, but I don't know. Other than Bowers, I know Bowers is a good blocker. I don't know how Darnell Washington and Eric Gilbert are at blocking. I'm not 100% sure on that. I know Bowers is a complete tight end. When he comes out, he's going to be probably a first-round pick in the NFL draft. He's phenomenal. He had the best freshman season I've ever seen from a tight end, possibly in the history of college football, in at least modern day. So, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they just run those guys out there, all three of them at the same time for at least 50+ % of the snaps, and they're huge mismatches. No rebuilding. We should expect to be in the Pac-12 championship game. Okay, that's a very bold prediction there from Eric.
With the Pac-12 not doing divisions this year, it's going to be interesting to see who ends up in that Pac-12.
That's a very good point. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, that makes it more probable, in my opinion, that I could see them get there. There's really only 3 or 4 contenders in the Pac-12. The rest, I mean, Colorado might be the worst Power 5 team. They're going to be pretty god awful. They had a lot of transfers, new coaching staff. It's just bad there. It's pretty amazing how you look back to the 90s and you have Colorado and Nebraska who are very good, and then all of a sudden can't do better than 6-6 basically. And it would shock me if Colorado won more than 3 games this year.
Yeah, I have Colorado as the worst team in the Pac-12 this year, even above Stanford.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, they're terrible. It's been bad ever since Mel Tucker was there. A year, and they started to improve, and then he left, and then it's gone downhill ever since then.
What's up, Big Dog Brad? It's good to see you in here, buddy.
Hey, he probably would, because we need help on the offensive line. It's interesting too. What do you think, D4, about Sark not coming out with a depth chart? You a fan of that or no?
I don't see it as being an issue. Georgia fans can take all their digs. They're high on the mountain right now, but you cannot say anything negative about Georgia whatsoever without them coming with the pitchforks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's coming at me right now, so it's fine. I don't know your team inside and out. I was just asking the question if these guys could block as good as Bowers. I know Bowers can block. I didn't know about Gilbert and Washington. I'm not surprised Washington blocked. The man is 6'7", and like you said, the LeBron James of college football. He's huge. So if he tries, he could block. Exploring with Ben and Sam, any prediction for Texas Tech with their new coach? Is Shao for sure the starting quarterback this season? Do you know if they came out with does Texas Tech have a depth chart and Shao's the starter? Do you know about
that? Yeah, he's been announced as the starter.
Okay, yeah. I mean, he was pretty good last year, wasn't great, and then obviously sustained the collarbone injury versus Texas. I do believe Texas Tech, I do like Joey McGuire. I think they're actually starting to put money into the football program with NIL. You see every scholarship player gets $25,000. So I do think that them and TCU definitely have, once Texas and Oklahoma leave, have a chance to rise pretty far up in the Big 12. But I don't know about this year. I don't think they're going to be great.
I'd agree. Joey McGuire is hot on the recruiting trail right now. He is getting some in-state talent, and they're not going to be there this year. They lost their leading pass catcher last year. They're trying to get away from the old Texas Tech, and I just don't think Tyler Shough is going to be the answer for them. I think he's a bridge quarterback for what Joey McGuire is going to want in the future. Like I said, I just think he's a bridge. And, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think TCU and Texas Tech are very similar. They come in with these coaches who want to change kind of the systems they run. TCU wants to be more spread out now, throw the ball around a lot. And I think Sonny Dykes will be very good at TCU, especially the way he's recruiting in the Dallas area. But it's going to take some time. I think people have unreal expectations of especially smaller schools like that. They can't really rebuild in the transfer portal like bigger schools can. So those guys are still going to have to take some time to rebuild and make up what they want on their teams. I don't like Georgia's offense because I don't like Stetson Bennett. And you say he won the national championship last year. That had little to do with Stetson Bennett. That had everything to do with, in my opinion, the best college football defense of the past 2 decades. That's my opinion. Because you have a Hobbit IQ. Yes. You have a.
I will give Stetson Bennett credit. He is very good at eluding defenders and blades of grass at the same time.
That's true. I mean, I appreciate him. He's a gamer, and every time he steps on that field, he gives it all. And I appreciate someone like that. He's like a less talented version of Sam Ehlinger, but it's just not. You have all these guys that have come into Georgia and had the chance to be your starting quarterback, and Kirby just for some reason always goes with the less talented guy. You had Justin Fields and Jacob Eason. He went with Jake Fromm. As I don't know if you guys have watched Jake Fromm in the NFL. That guy might be one of the worst quarterbacks to ever play a game in the NFL. He was terrible with the Giants. The Giants chose to run on a 3rd down and 1 from their own, or 3rd down on their own 1-yard line, not even to throw the ball because they didn't want Jake Fromm to throw the ball. He's not good at all, and he chose him over Justin Fields and Jacob Eason. Now you have Stetson Bennett, and you have all those guys on the bench that you don't play over him. So that's why. But it doesn't matter because your defense is always good, so you're gonna win most of the games you play anyways.
Yeah. Did you see Stetson Bennett throw a 40-yard touchdown pass to put Georgia up in the Natty? Yeah, I seen the defense jump off sides. He dropped back, closed his eyes, and threw it as hard and as far as he could, and a hope and a prayer into the end zone. That's what I see.
I appreciate the fan base sticking up for him, and he's going to be a legend there because he won their first national championship in 40-plus years. But to defend the guy and say, like, you couldn't do better at a school like Georgia as your quarterback. You guys had Matthew Stafford, Aaron Murray. Guys like that are way better than him, and that should be your standard of quarterback at the University of Georgia, not Stetson Bennett. We got some fighting between Eric and Big Dog Brett in here.
You love to see it. You love to see it.
Vandy Dandy, we need to put a Vanderbilt stadium. Hey, Vanderbilt might be in the best city in the country for like partying and shit like that. But the problem is your football team sucks. Like, how do you have Nashville right in your backyard to recruit to, and your football team can never win more than 2 games? Like
Kirby's visor. I'm just busting your chops, man. It was a great play by Stetson Bennett. He was a smart play. They jumped off sides, and he took care of the mistake.
We're just giving. Hey, you were throwing it at us, so we've got to throw it back at you. Won't happen. Georgia will kill Oregon. It depends what your definition of kill is. Like I said, I think the spread's 17.5. I don't think Georgia's covering that because guess what? You win by 17 and you still don't cover it. Oregon beats Georgia. I mean, that'd be interesting. I'm trying to think of like somewhat big games that could be considered upsets this week. If we're going to do that, I would consider if you're just going by the spread, I think Cincinnati beats Arkansas. That'd be my upset. What about you, D4? Is there any games this week 1 where you could see an upset in college football?
I think Notre Dame, Ohio State has room to upset. West Virginia has a chance to upset Pitt. I'm trying to think. Florida has a chance to upset Utah.
Yeah, that'd be another one too. If Anthony Richardson is who everyone thinks he can be, I think they could beat Utah, but that's going to be hard. I don't know, especially the first game of the Billy Napier era I think Utah's a very good team. I just don't know if they're a college football playoff team. Them coming in the swamp, that'd be a very interesting game. But that I could see that happening if Anthony Richardson ends up being who we think he can be.
Oh, that's another good one right there. App State over North Carolina. That is a very, very dangerous game for North Carolina. App State is a over there in Boone, North Carolina. That is a crazy place to play, and they
Oh,
have
they're playing at App State?
yeah,
Wow, okay.
and they they have two uh, really good running back in Noel and Cameron Peoples that absolutely ran all over everybody last year. Uh, but I think that's an interesting game. I'm not saying that App State will beat North Carolina, but I'm saying they could be on upset alert if things bounce the right way. And App State's one of those teams, just as Michigan in '07,
Yeah.
going to be very dangerous.
Yeah, there are certain teams. I'm surprised any Power Five school schedules anymore. I think App State's on that list. I think North Dakota State's on that list. Like, you don't really benefit from like scheduling them because they're good enough to beat you, and if you beat them, everyone expects you to beat them. So I don't understand why you schedule the teams like that. If you're gonna go like that route, just fully commit and go the absolute cupcake route, in my opinion, especially for week one. Um, but it was like us with the Raging Cajuns last year. If they played their best game and we were off that day, they would have beat us and we would have been laughed at the whole week. And we benefit nothing from that. No one cares that we beat Louisiana.
Another, I was listening to Mark and the Iowa guy earlier. Uh, South Dakota State at Iowa. Uh,
North Dakota State beat them a couple years ago in Iowa.
yeah,
And South Dakota State's very good. South Dakota State's top 3 or 4 FCS team. Uh, and this is a good one. Harry Leg, Illinois over Indiana -3.5. I like that just because usually your biggest jump is from week 1 to week 2 or week 0 to week 1 as a team because you get your feet wet. You start to actually get game time reps, and that's usually your biggest jump in the season. And Illinois already has a game under the belt, and Indiana I expect to be fully terrible this year. So I like that. I think Illinois probably is going to beat Indiana.
I did not know that SEC dog. He says the Vegas guys have the UNC App State basically as a pickup game.
Do
That's
they
very
really?
that's very surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, that is very surprising. There's a couple lines like that. I know I heard today 81% of the money is on Notre Dame and the spread keeps getting bigger. So Vegas fully expects Ohio State to actually like just destroy Notre Dame. Which I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't think 17.5 is a lot for a game like that. And Notre Dame is overrated. They shouldn't be ranked number 5, but first game, it's hard to read. JM, does Texas have a chance against Bama or will Texas be unranked again by the end of the season? Um, does Texas have a chance against Alabama? If you told me we were fully healthy, we had Junior Angulau and Isaiah Nair, there's a world in which Texas could stay in that game and somehow pull off a miraculous upset. I do not see that happening now. I don't think there's any chance. Even if we play our best game, if Alabama rolled out there and played their B- game, they're still going to beat us by 2 touchdowns, in my opinion, 10 to 14 points. I expect us to be in the game for the most part, and then Alabama pulls away late. I think it probably is within 14 to 17 points, is my opinion, is what they beat us by.
I just it's not the year. It's not the year to compete with Bama. That's all. That's all I think I'm gonna say about it. It's not the year for us to compete. Let us get these recruits in and so on and so forth. But just not the year.
100%. And I mean, we're gonna have Kelvin Banks in the second game, most likely going up against Will Anderson. I'm really interested to see because you cannot leave that kid out on an island for more. You might be able to play like 3 to 4 plays where it's just 1-on-1. The rest of the plays, you need to be chipping, you need to be double teaming, you need to be doing bootlegs out to the other side. You need to do everything you can to avoid Will Anderson. And obviously, they still have great pass rushers other than Will Anderson on the team, but that guy's the best player in college football, pound for pound. Does positionless, doesn't matter. And they need to stay away from him at all costs.
Boy, these Georgia and Oregon fans are going at it in the chat. I love it.
I know.
I love it.
Hey, Oregon could possibly join the SEC. We never know. Because I really do think at some point it's going to go to 20 teams each for the Big Ten and SEC.
Big Dog Brett just texted me SEC.
Gary Lewis, only silver lining for ATX, Alabama, Robinson, QB, Ewers, and Robinson moved the ball somewhat even against Alabama. I agree. We'll move the ball because we have offensive talent, and I think Sark will be able to design some plays to maneuver around the young offensive line versus the defensive line of Alabama. But the problem is there's not enough calls in the playbook to do that every play, and Alabama's going to win more reps than they lose.
I just want to compete in this game. Mm-hmm. I don't want us to tuck our tail and run at the first sign of distress. I want us to compete.
100%. I want to see us punch them in the mouth just as they punch us. We may not punch as hard, but you still need to be throwing them. And I think in the first half, I think we'll come out with all the energy and mojo and everything. But that's probably that as the game goes farther, that's going to wear off. And the Texas heat, luckily we're playing at noon. That will help us out a lot as well. It's probably going to be 110, 120 degrees on the field. And hopefully we can use that to our advantage as well. But they're still going to win the game, guys. I think if you ask most Texas fans, 95% of them are going to tell you we don't really have much of a shot in this game to win it. I think we can compete. We're not going to win it. Yeah, Gary Lewis, I'm not 100% sure what the spread is anymore. At one point when I looked, it was 16. I don't know if it's still there. I don't know what it's moved to. I haven't checked that lately.
Yeah, I'll check.
Okay. Yeah, I think if it's anything lower than 20, I would definitely take Texas. But that's my point. I don't think they beat us by 3 touchdowns. JM, so you think they cover that 16? 16, no, I would not bet 16. To me, the number's 20. I would anything lower than 20, I would take Texas.
I don't see the spread on it right now.
Bama by 24. I don't think it'll be that high. I think they win like 45 to 27, something along those lines.
I seen a question here. D4, what's your take on the Bama O-line going into this year? Is it make or break your season again? Is it make or break a season for us? Or as far as Bama's offensive line goes, when you lose an Evan Neal, when you lose, a few key pieces on there, and you struggled last year, I don't think it's I don't think it's a recipe for good things to happen.
100%. But they always reload. I don't think they're going to have a terrible offensive line because they never do. But if they have an average one, and Bryce Young's mobile enough, you have good running backs, you have good wide receivers, they're able to maneuver around that. And I think this year, this defense could be possibly as good as Georgia's defense last year. So it doesn't kill them, obviously. They're still going to be, them and Ohio State are still in the tier by themselves, and then there's a drop-off after that.
He said if the O-line for Texas can block Will Anderson in battle, block Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, yes. I mean, we're going to have a freshman left tackle. We're going to have a guy that struggled a little bit last year in probably Christian Jones. But I look for them to be able to hold their times, but nobody is going to be able to shut down Will Anderson.
Nope. And that's the thing. I think Kelvin Banks is going to win some reps just because he's super talented, but he's not going to win. If you line him up 100 times versus Will Anderson, he might win 10 reps at this point. Now, at the end of his career, he might be able to win. That might be a 50-50 matchup. But right now, he's just too young. He's too there's not enough experience there. So we don't expect a lot from him. We just want him to get their feet wet. That's really what this year is about, is a building block into next year. I think every Texas fan, at least in my opinion, this is a building block till next year because you got Quinn Ewers in his second year. You'll have Xavier Worthy in his last year. You'll have these freshman offensive linemen grown up and getting under the weight program for another year. There's a really good chance. I mean, if Bijan Robinson is getting paid enough, if someone wants to throw him a crazy amount of money, he could stay around another year. And even if he doesn't, that running back room is loaded. So, and Isaiah Nair will be back. So next year is the year for us Texas fans. This is a building block year.
Let's see. Texas does not have a Darnell Washington. No, we don't have a Darnell Washington. We do have Jatavion Sanders, who is a pretty decent inline blocker. And we also have our
Juan Davis, as you're talking about tight ends.
Yeah, Helm.
Oh, Gunnar Helm.
Helm's a pretty good inline blocker, but he's not on the level of Washington, when it comes to blocking, I don't think there's a tight end in the country right now that has the blocking ability that Washington does. That being said, I agree with Big Dog Brett as well. You're going to have to out scheme Will Anderson, but you cannot outplay him. That guy has an insane motor, and it's right. You're going to have to out scheme him and keep the ball out of Quinn Ewers' hands quickly. So,
yeah, what do you see? What you see? What Bill Belichick always did with the best defensive players, and if you watch tape when they, especially when they played J.J. Watt, he'd run a lot of reverses, a lot of bootlegs, stuff to get him moving, but not really knowing where the ball is. Because if you make the really good pass rushers think instead of react, you got a chance, and that's what we have to do. Now, I would not. You can't do that for every play because at some point you're just it's just going to get recognized. That's the issue here. If we can be successful with those type of plays and then also win reps on top of that, just normal plays, and win those reps, I think we have a shot to, again, compete. But if we just come out and say we're not going to do any of that stuff, where misdirection, screens, reverses, bootlegs, then we're in for a world of hurt. I don't expect that, though. I think Sark obviously is one of the top 3 play callers in football, so I expect him to draw up a very good game plan. 8-4 is a good season for Texas. Then, yes, I would agree. 8-4, 9-3 is exactly what. If you told every Texas fan if you could sign up for that, just gave us 8-4, 9-3, not knowing where the wins and losses come against, we would sign up for that 100%. In my opinion.
how many self-batted balls turn into interceptions this season from Brock Purdy? Well, Graham Rivers clearly. Yeah, well, Brock Purdy's in the NFL, and well, I don't really watch that too much.
Big Dog Brett, Arkansas might be able to win 9 games this season. Thoughts? I think that is a possible. Their schedule's very hard, though. They play a lot of good teams. I mean, they start out with Cincinnati. I think people are underrating Cincinnati. They've recruited one under Fickle. He's a good play caller as well on the defensive side. And he's good at he's just an all-around great coach. I think he's a top 10 coach in college football. So I think he'll have a game plan ready. Obviously, their big question is replacing Desmond Ridder. So we'll see what happens there. But I think there's a really good possibility, and I already called it. I think Cincinnati beats Arkansas opening week. I think Arkansas probably goes 8-4 again, which isn't a bad season with that schedule.
You're taking Cincinnati in that game?
I am.
I'm going to go the opposite of that. I think Arkansas is absolutely going to steamroll Cincinnati, and this is why I say that. They lost so much on that defense last year and you give Sam Pittman, and this is year 3, right?
Yes.
Yeah, with that offensive line, I think they're going to line up and do what Bama did to them in the playoff last year, and just line it up and run it down their throats. And I can't see that game going any other way.
I could see that as well. Obviously, I just don't believe Arkansas's explosiveness is going to be there anymore with Treylon Burks missing. I mean, that guy really bailed out KJ Jefferson. I kind of draw that conclusion or comparison to where the same thing with Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans. I think it was the same thing. Mike Evans made Johnny Manziel on passes down the field and made big plays for him. I think Treylon Burks did the same thing for KJ Jefferson.
But I actually, they got Hazelwood from
Oklahoma.
I think he feels that he may not be as good as Treylon Burks, but I think he is going to fill the role of Treylon Burks when it comes.
And I've heard Matt Landers is very good as well. I've heard reports on him. Hazelwood really never showed anything at Oklahoma, though. And if you're not showing anything in Oklahoma, it's really hard for me to believe you show anything at Arkansas, because Oklahoma churns out wide receivers like it's nothing. They always have good wide receivers. So maybe he can become good at Arkansas, but he wasn't very good at Oklahoma. I think Bama could be on upset alert in Fayetteville, and Arky could be ranked and undefeated at that point. That'd be a very intriguing game if they're both undefeated going in there. And you saw what Arkansas fans did when Texas came to town. Imagine when Alabama comes to town being ranked number 1 and undefeated. I think it's going to be sold out, probably be the biggest sellout in the history of their stadium. So that would be a very entertaining game. It'll be a very, very entertaining game anyways.
All right, big dog Brad. We'll see you, buddy.
Landers finally got some hands. They say we'll see. Yeah, that was his issue at Georgia. Couldn't really get on the field there because of that, but maybe he did at Arkansas. That's the thing too. It's hard to tell with all these reports that come out of practice because it's a lot of times it's just blowing smoke. So who knows? We'll have to see. Obviously, week 1 game for Cincinnati, it's going to be a very interesting game. I don't think Arkansas had that on their mind when they scheduled Cincinnati years back because Cincinnati wasn't a great program then. They were good, but now they've taken that step up to be probably the best Power 5 program in the country. Big dog Brett, we'll go back to this. Utah will beat Florida by 3 scores. I don't know about that just because Utah isn't exactly an explosive offensive team, and I think Florida can put up some points with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. So I don't know about 3 touchdowns. That's a lot.
I definitely think Utah wins, but uh, which Anthony Richardson are you going to get?
Yeah, that's true.
The explosive one or the guy that's going to throw picks? You know, they lost most of their running back room this past year. New head coach, new system. How well is Anthony Richardson going to pick up the offense? Like how much are they going to be able to open up? How much does he know of it? It's just a lot of question marks for Florida right this year.
100%. Gary Lewis, what do Texas fans need to see from 2022 defense in order for Kwiatkowski to keep his job? Average. We want average defense. I think we ranked in the hundreds or exactly number 100 last year. So move up to around the 60 to 70 range, and we're good. I think you can't expect anything more than that. Just take baby steps, and 67 will be fine. Then the next year, get up to the 40s, and that's what I expect for him to keep his job.
I think for PK to keep his job, we're going to have to make not only halftime adjustments, which we did not last year. We fell off in a lot of games at halftime last year, but we're going to have to make series to series adjustments. If they're doing something, we got to change the defense. We have to finish games. I beat a dead horse up on Baylor, up on Oklahoma State, up on Oklahoma. Can't finish the game. Did not make the necessary adjustments. Gassed out. Something has to be different this year, or I think you'll see Gary Patterson with the headset instead of the index cards.
And teams could do whatever they wanted to on Texas last year. You know, years in the past, we could complain about Todd Orlando because we were very good against the run, but bad versus the pass. Last year, we weren't good versus either. So at least if you have to decide to pick a lane to just be good at one or the other, do that. Obviously, we'd like to be good at both, but do that. And especially the run game, that's what happened in the second half of most of these games. Iowa State especially comes to mind. They pounded it at us and destroyed us in the second half on the ground. So that has to get better. I like that they're playing more press man coverage. We, as Texas fans, we have been asking for that for a long time, all the way back to Orlando. So that's always good. Hopefully that will help out as well, especially with the deep balls. Hopefully the technique gets better. That's all we can hope for.
What's up, Tim Prangley?
Most likely track game for Texas this year. A lot seem to think UTSA falling Alabama, but is there another one possibly? I don't see that as a trap game. I don't think if this was last year's UTSA, I think that was a trap game, but they've lost too much. I don't think they're going to be as good, obviously. My trickiest game, and I'll keep saying, is Kansas State. I really think going to Manhattan, I think we're going to lose that game.
I don't see it as a trap game either. I just can't see it. ULM, UTSA, I view them as tune-up games, and I can't see them as anything else.
SEC dog, I don't see why Utah is getting all the hype. Of course, they beat Oregon twice last year. I mean, whoop-de-doo. They bring a lot back, and after they made the change at quarterback from Charlie Brewer to Cam Rising, they really took off. So I think obviously they lost Devin Lloyd on defense, who was phenomenal. He's in the NFL now from the linebacker position, but they're still going to be pretty good. I don't know. I totally forget the guy's name, but it was very impressive last year. He played both cornerback and wide receiver for them. I don't know if he's back. He was really good. He was pretty good at both. He also returned a kick versus Ohio State for a touch or for almost a touchdown. So that guy's impressive. I think Utah's definitely got the talent to be very good, but then that again, this is Pac-12 very good. This isn't. I don't see them being able to compete and get into the playoff, but I think they can go 10-2.
I think the reason why Utah gets as much love as they're getting is because they are very, very, very well coached. I think Kyle Whittingham is one of the top coaches in the country. Also, I think they're getting a lot of love because not only Cam Rising, but both of their lines of scrimmage are very stout and very lean on you and try to break your will.
And I would agree with this MSU Detroit fan. I think it's more of another Rose Bowl game. I 100% agree with that. And they would have won that game last year, in my opinion, if Cam Rising doesn't get hurt. They were playing very well, and then he got hurt and obviously dropped off after that. And they couldn't cover for Jackson Smith in Jigba. Whatever they did, that was atrocious.
Well, they were covering him with a running back.
Yeah, that's what it was. This guy, yeah, that's true. But it was insane. What do you have? Like 15 catches, like 270 something yards, almost 300 yards. That was insane. And some of the stats that Jackson Smith and Jigba put up, I think in his last like 6 games, he had over 1,000 yards receiving.
Yeah, he ended up leading that Ohio State receiving corps in yardage.
And Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson told the truth. They said he's the best out of the three of us, and so far so good. We'll see what he does what they do in the NFL, and then we'll see what he does when he gets drafted in the first round after coming out this year.
Gary Lewis says Texas's traditional Big 12 trap game whenever they travel to Stillwater, and sometimes up at Ames. I can't say that Oklahoma State's going to be a trap game because I think that they finished above us. Ames, they come to us this year. Ames, Iowa State comes to us this year, I believe. So I don't think that'll be an issue. And man, did they lose a ton.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be very good. I think they'll finish in the bottom 3 of the Big 12. I also think why my game versus Kansas State is a trap game is because we play Oklahoma State the week before. I think we get up for Oklahoma State and beat them, but then have a down week the next week and lose to Kansas State.
Yeah, Tim, I agree. Their line is consistently good for a decade, and they have Cam Rising, and he is that good. I would agree.
In my opinion, 22, Oklahoma State won't be tough. I think they'll be tough. I don't think they're going to be like they were last year. Obviously, they lost Jim Knowles. They bring in Derek Mason, but still, you're going to be changing some things up. There's always some different changes when you switch coaches, even though Derek Mason, phenomenal defensive coordinator. But I just don't see it. I could see if Spencer Sanders has a great year like he's capable of, I think they can win the Big 12. But that is a lot of stock to put in my opinion, to Spencer Sanders.
Yeah, especially for a guy that hasn't proven that he can be consistent on a week-to-week basis.
100%. Yeah, he has the talent. We've seen games. His freshman year versus Texas, he was pretty good in that game. But then you see other games, and he's just terrible. So it's very hard to rely on him.
Yeah, there is a possibility of that. Also, Gary Lewis's comment at 22, Kansas State could be hard game for UT. Kansas State is going to do exactly what was our weakness last year: line up, run the ball down our throat, and they have I think he's the top 5 running back in the country in Deuce Vaughn, and Martinez brings a different style of play at quarterback than we're used to. I mean, their quarterback last year was a runner as well, but not with the speed and agility of a Martinez.
And people forget Colin Klein is the offensive coordinator, and what Colin Klein did at Kansas State, I think, is going to try to replicate with Adrian Martinez, and I think that could give us issues. Also, the Texas linebacker room is by far the weakest, in my opinion, position group on the team. If we sustain an injury, it's not very good at all, and I think they're going to put Deuce Vaughn in a lot of situations where they expose our linebackers in coverage throwing the ball. I don't like 2022 Oklahoma State because their offense is so-so and they have a new DC. Yeah, that's basically where I'm at as well. I think the defense improves throughout the year and gets better under Derek Mason because, like I said, phenomenal coach. But I do think they struggle early on. Also, I think Jim Knowles is a phenomenal hire for Ohio State. I think he'll get their defense on the right track. I think Ohio State fans are overrating on how quick he will do that because if you look at his trajectory, even though he does have better talent at Ohio State, what he did at Oklahoma State, they're progressively better while he was there. It wasn't just one gigantic jump and then maintaining it. They just got progressively better every year.
You're MSU Detroit fan. Oklahoma does have a bad history of slow starts at their game. Missouri State last year or Tulsa in 2022, and Chips ain't no pushover MAC team.
That is true. I remember watching that Tulsa game a couple years back, and they barely won, and they only won that because of Chuba Hubbard, and they don't have Chuba Hubbard on that team, obviously.
Yeah, and that Chippewa's team has Jim McElwain as their coach. So, people say what they want about him his time in Florida. He's a solid coach.
Yeah, he's a good offensive coordinator, good mind. But we'll see. I don't think they're going to lose that game. I could see it being close, obviously, but I still think Oklahoma State comes out on top there. And for you guys in the chat, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And also go over to D4 Sports, subscribe to his channel, like his videos. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. We are going to do a post-game show after every Texas game, win or loss. I was here for every win, which wasn't many of them, and after every loss, which was way too many. And we'll be here no matter what. Me and D4 talking, breaking it down on the Texas Football Channel. So please subscribe down below. Please like that video. Thank you guys very much.
The new KSU Washington Brookline was another reason, I think. Yeah, I agree. What's up, LW?
And then with all the Savion Red Talk, D4, do you think it's a possibility that he ends up, let's say, third on the team in receptions? Could you see that or no?
I think he could end up in the top half for sure. He's definitely impressed a lot of people in camp. He's been equated to a running back as soon as he gets the ball in his hands. So it'd be definitely, especially if we have a history of Jay Witt having issues staying healthy. So does he go in that role? Does he, later on in the ULM game, do we see Savion Red out there? When our too deep, you never know. But he's definitely a talented kid that had absolutely come out of nowhere. And people don't understand he was one of the last recruits that we put on the board.
Yeah, I think he ended up being a high 3-star recruit. I don't think he ever made a 4-star recruit. I think he's one of those guys that as a 3-star that ends up plays like a 5-star. From everything we've heard, he's been phenomenal in camp. So I'm not saying he can explode this year, but I would expect him to play a big role going forward in this offense.
Yeah, I agree. MSU Detroit fan. Sometimes the rankings does not show who the player is. I agree 100%. You can sit there and judge kids on their ability, this, that, and other. But some kids are just gamers. They have game speed. It doesn't really show in 40 times. It doesn't show, But you get these kids that maybe got left out of the camps, maybe got overlooked and everything. You find those diamonds in the rough, and I think that is just as good as finding a diamond in the rough as having a 5-star that is a middle of the road guy. You look at we got Ben Davis from Alabama. The guy was like the number one linebacker in the country, 5-star and everything at Alabama. Then he comes to us and he really didn't do anything.
Yeah. And another guy like that, Josh Jacobs, was a 3-star for Alabama, and look how good he was, and look how good he is in the NFL. There's a lot of guys like that were never really given a shot for whatever reason. They could have gone to a small school and didn't really, promote themselves very well. And that's another thing too. If you're going to a small school, you kind of have to promote yourself. You have to get your own film, put it out there. And if you don't do that, then no one can really find you. And there's multiple examples of that. And at the end of the day, recruiting rankings, once you're on campus, don't matter. Like, they're going to coach you. And if you end up being a bad 5-star recruit, like you go out there, your stars aren't going to matter. If you're a great 3-star recruit, it doesn't matter. You just have to prove yourself once you're on campus. That is a great name, Scooby Wright. I remember he ended up getting drafted, I believe, in the 7th round to the Seahawks. I don't think he ever did anything with them. I don't even know if he's in the NFL anymore, but I love that name. Kenneth Walker III, yeah, he was phenomenal. I think he's going to be good in Seattle. Obviously, with Chris Carson retiring, I think that's a possibility. He has a good year with the Seahawks, even though I think the Seahawks are one of the 3 worst teams in the NFL. HR pick and stuff. Congratulations on that. I know that how that is. I think there's a lot of comparisons from Clay Helton to Tom Herman. Tom Herman obviously struggled with Texas, and Clay Helton struggled with USC. And then they always recruited pretty well. I mean, you got what? Corey Foreman was the #1 recruit, and somehow you guys got him with Clay Helton. I don't know how, with underperforming and everything, but that was always a weird hire for me. So now you got Lincoln Riley. I think they're going to be phenomenal offensively this year, and they're going to have to build up that defense as time goes on. LW. Yep. Mac Jones as well. I did not know Mark Ingram was a 3-star recruit. I will say that. I'd like to see what Malcolm Rodriguez can do for the Lions. That is 100% a Dan Campbell type player. A really high motor, low like recruited player. Dan Campbell loves to coach guys like that, so I think he'll do pretty well with the Lions. Major Applewhite was a badass. Yeah, he was pretty good. He wasn't great. I wouldn't know much because I wasn't really alive during that time. D4, what are your memories of Major Applewhite?
Man, Major Applewhite, he was a fan favorite. He was all guts, all you know, just just all guts and go. He got overlooked because Chris Sims was the high star guy, but he didn't have the cast, he didn't have the players that some of these other guys did. That we've had in the past, Vince Young or Colt McCoy or stuff like that. He made the best of what he had.
That sounds a lot like Sam Ehlinger to me then, because I think Sam did that at Texas. I don't think Sam gets appreciated. I think if you put Sam, I really wish he would have stayed for Sark. I think he could have benefited highly. You see what he's doing in the NFL now. He's made the Colts roster. I think he can basically be Colt McCoy 2.0, really solid backup for a long period of time, come in once or twice a season when your quarterback's hurt, and just keep the offense rolling for a little bit.
Yeah, Sims was not a prepared guy. Uh, he had a lot of flaws in his mechanics and his vision of the defense. So, and I think that's where Major Applewhite would come in. He knew the offense inside and out. He was not going to lose you a game. So,
Sim Jr. was horrible. The Bo picks of his era. Yeah, Bo Nix is going to be interesting at Oregon. I'm interested to see. I don't even know. Did they come out with the depth chart for the quarterbacks at Oregon? Do you know that, D4? Is Bo Nix the starter?
they have not come out with and they named him the starter yet. I made a mistake. I was doing a video, and I thought that they had already had.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. I don't know if he'll start. That'd be crazy to be transferred from Auburn, where I think he probably would have played because their quarterback situation, talk about a mess. My God. So in that whole situation in general, that's so messy what they're trying to do to Brian Harsin. Basically that rumor that he was having an affair, and they basically tried to exploit that to see if they could fire him with cause and then not pay him. I mean, he's not going to be there next year unless they go like 10-2 or something, which isn't going to happen. I mean, the recruiting is the worst in the SEC going into next year. He's a dead man walking. I really feel bad for him. He should have stayed at Boise State.
Yeah, they did everything possible to get him out of there.
Yeah, and they're just going to let him roam the sidelines knowing that he's gone after this year, basically.
For the last little bit that we're in here, we can go over some games.
Yeah, 100%. You want to do that?
Yeah, I'll pull them up real quick.
Okay.
All right, we'll start with the backyard brawl. Who you got? West Virginia or Pitt?
I am going to take. Pitt lost a lot. They lost their offensive coordinator. They lost Jordan Addison. They lost Kenny Pickett. I'm going to go with Pitt though. It's basically coming down to, do I like Keaton Slovis or do I like JT Daniels? And I like Keaton Slovis better, so I'm going to take Pitt.
Yeah, I'll take. I can't take West Virginia. I've already been. And I think they roll in the backyard brawl and break that streak.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, next game. We have Oregon, Georgia.
Okay. I think this is pretty simple here. I think Georgia wins the game. I think Oregon does cover the spread. I think, like I said, it's 17.5. I think Oregon stays under that. But if Georgia wins the game, they're still a top 5 team in the country. Like you said, the triple threat at tight end, I don't see how Oregon deals with that in the running game and in the passing game. The play action stuff you can run off of that. So I'm taking Georgia.
Yeah, I'll take Georgia as well. And that's, I think it's not a foregone conclusion, but that would be a great upset.
It would be a very great upset. I think college football really needs that as a week 1 gigantic upset like that.
Cincinnati, Arkansas. We talked on this earlier. You're taking Cincinnati. I'm taking Arkansas.
Correct. I think Cincinnati is able to withstand that Arkansas running game. I think Cincinnati has a very good offensive line as well. I think they're able to move the ball a little bit. And I think KJ Jefferson will be exposed a little bit with Treylon Burks out. I like KJ Jefferson. I just don't like him without Treylon Burks as much, obviously.
Utah at Florida.
I'm going to take Utah. I think this is a closer game than Big Dog Brett jumped in here when he was in here and said 3 touchdowns. I think this is a closer game than that. I think Utah wins by about 10 points. I think going into the swamp is going to be very difficult, especially in the heat. The heat between Utah and Florida is a gigantic difference. And I think Cam Rising is what's going to make the difference in this game.
I'll take Utah as well. I think Cam Rising and the offensive defensive line are the more proven commodity when it comes to the two teams. So, yeah, give me Utah. He does not go by the name AR-15 anymore.
Yes. Even though I'm sure there will be shirts in the swamp that have that on there. Just because he doesn't want it, it's still gonna be out there.
Yeah. Okay, last game. Notre Dame and Ohio State.
I think this is pretty easy. I think Ohio State wins. I don't think they win by, again, I think this is too high of a spread, like 17.5. I think this is like a 14-point game, and it's 14 points consistently throughout the game. I don't really see Notre Dame getting within anything less than 1 score at any point during this game. I think Ohio State just has way too much offensive talent to overcome. Notre Dame is kind of in, again, not a rebuilding year, but like a retooling year with Marcus Freeman. He's going to want to do things differently his way than Brian Kelly did. So I think he still has talent, and he's obviously bringing in tremendous talent in next year's class, but I just don't think they're ready to compete at that level, a national championship level like Ohio State is.
My boy Will is in here. He said, hey, guys, he's a Notre Dame fan. Close your ears because Tyler Buckner is the 65th best quarterback in the nation. It's just a little inside joke between me and Will. And I think Ohio State rolls in this one, and I think the depth at receiver and it being Tyler Buckner's first start of the season, unproven, I think Ohio State rolls, and I think they roll big.
Yeah, There's a real possibility that C.J. Stroud, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Will Anderson, and Bryce Young are the four guys sitting in New York for the Heisman. There's a real possibility those are just the four guys, just because I really think head and shoulders above everyone else is Alabama and Ohio State. And I think those four guys are probably the four best players in the country. So that wouldn't shock me at all. And even if, let's say, hypothetically, Jackson Smith and Jigba, you guys double team them, take them out of the game, you still have Julian Fleming, Marvin Harrison Jr. You have so many guys at the wide receiving core for Ohio State. Brian Hartline is single-handedly the best recruiter in the country. So I just don't see how Notre Dame deals with that this year. And I don't think any team will deal with that, by the way, this year. Ohio State gets Notre Dame, scores between 35 and 48. I think they'll score. I think it'll be 45 to 30. I don't think Ohio State's defense is great, but they're going to be better than last year. And Notre Dame's offense isn't great. If you told me you could just take Notre Dame's offense from last year and have their defense of this year, they could probably compete a little bit better, but they don't. They're offensively, they're just so inept at this point. I just don't see how they're able to outduel. I think it's going to come to that point where you have to outduel Ohio State, and they just don't have the capability of doing that. And there's very few teams that do. I think we're going to wrap things up here, guys, in about 5 minutes. It's been a great time here. Can you please hit that like button? Please subscribe down below. Go over to the channels list on Mark Rogers TV. Go check out all those channels as well. Hit the like button, subscribe. Please subscribe to the Texas channel. We're going to be here live after every Texas game. You don't want to miss it, especially after week 2 versus Alabama. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe over there as well. Thank you guys very much. And also go over to D4 Sports. Subscribe to his content. Like his channel. Thank you, guys. Wow. Tim Prongley, you think it's going to be the one-score game? I just don't see – it's hard for me to believe Notre Dame can keep up with Ohio State. Very hard. Will's got Notre Dame. Obviously, he's a Notre Dame fan, but 38. I don't know. That's with Notre Dame scoring late to make it close. So basically, it was 33-20, and they scored late. I just don't see them. I don't know. I just don't see that. HR pick. Brian Kelly 263, 96 and 2. Freeman 0 and 1. I'm gonna start 0 and 2. I actually like Marcus Freeman. I think he's gonna be a very good coach. Obviously, he's a very good recruiter. I didn't think Notre Dame could recruit like this, and they are, which is it's tough to do with the academic standards there. Obviously, a big brand, and they definitely have a lot of money, but still very impressive.
If you guys haven't already, you guys should really consider joining Mark's Patreon. We were in there last night after hours talking and everything, and we were busting Will's chops and about Tyler. Athlon Sports had him as the 65th best quarterback in the nation, and we broke it down and went through almost all of them. And then we were naming coaches that were better than Marcus Freeman, and it was just hilarious. Will's reaction was absolutely hilarious. We have an absolutely wonderful time in Mark's Discord. You guys should really think about signing up for the Patreon and heading over there.
So D4, was that a proper ranking, or should he have been higher?
I think it's proper. I actually would drop Tyler Buckner lower. So.
Where do they have Quinn Ewers on that list, by the way?
Let me look real quick.
Okay, I'm interested.
Before we get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, I could, top 3 in my mind are Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, 1, 2, whatever position, and then Caleb Williams would be 3 for me. Those would be the top 3. I'm interested to see it. I wonder where they had Casey Thompson as well.
Casey was ahead of Tyler Buckner.
Okay. On the mullet list, LW, he's number 1. I don't know. That's a ratty ass mullet, man. I like Quinn, obviously, but that mullet's pretty bad. Will Claw, the most wholesome Notre Dame fan of all time. Number 1. Lincoln Riley wins 10 games, finishes in the top 10, best wide receiver room in college football. No, Ohio State has best wide receiver room in college football. It's not close. If you want to argue USC second, fine. I would have argued Texas second before Isaiah Nair getting hurt, but Ohio State's clearly number one. It's not even a debate. I think after next year, though, I think you can make a case for USC having the number one quarterback room in the country because you have Caleb Williams and then obviously Malachi Nelson if he stays. I know there's talks of him going to A&M, which I hope doesn't happen, but could happen. We'll see. No way we are deeper. Very debatable. I disagree. How are you deeper? Guys, they have like 5 guys that are going to play that have a chance to be drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. Jackson Smith and Jigma, Marvin Harrison Jr., Julian Fleming. There's other guys behind them as well. Like, I don't see it. Alabama, Henry Toto, Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, Bama returns 30 sacks. Yeah, I mean, they're going to destroy. That's like the biggest issue is here. If they didn't have those guys, I think Texas would stand a chance. But again, we're going to have 2 freshmen on the offensive line starting versus those guys and their second start. That's almost an impossible task.
Quinn Ewers is ranked 29.
29? Okay, that's still pretty high. I would have put him lower. And can I name 5 wide receivers from USC? You put me on the spot. Let's see. I got Jordan Addison. I got Mario Williams. And after that, I couldn't tell you.
Let's see. Addison, Mario Williams, Kyle Ford, Bynum, Gary Bryant Jr., Brendan Rice.
Yeah, Brendan Rice I should have got. I know he transferred.
Michael Jackson. I think that's it. That's all I'm thinking. Anything.
Would you take USC's wide receiver room over Ohio State's?
No.
Yeah, no. It's not, guys, that's not a debate. It really isn't a debate. But like I said, I really do believe if Malachi Nelson, which I think he will, stays with USC, they're going to have the best quarterback, an argument for the best quarterback room in the country next year. This is a good question, Will. Did Casey Thompson play worse than you thought he would against Northwestern? No, Casey Thompson in that game is exactly who Casey Thompson is. There are plays Casey Thompson makes, and you're like, wow, that guy can be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. There are other plays Casey Thompson makes like, that guy, what the hell is he thinking? What is he doing? His footwork, guys, is terrible. There's multiple times where he literally won't even have his feet planted. He'll literally like float in the air to throw a pass, and that's why he's so inaccurate on some of these balls. And I think a lot of that has to do, I think after last year's Oklahoma game where he stepped into a throw and broke his thumb, I think he's scared of stuff like that happening again. So he throws it off his back foot a lot. But basically what you saw in that game is Casey Thompson in a nutshell. Would you agree with that, D4?
Oh yeah, 100%. Definitely not. Yeah, he had a phenomenal first half. He's a tale of 2 quarterbacks. The first half or second, which Casey Thompson you gonna get in which half?
100%. And it's a shame because he has talent. And of course, Tom Herman, again, left us with him when we could have had Cam Rising. So he chose wrong there again as well. Cam Rising is better than Casey Thompson. But I do like, for most part, Texas fans like Casey Thompson till he went to Nebraska and just started, for whatever reason, bad-mouthing us. I don't know why. But more power to him. He did have a good response today when he said he's done taking questions about Texas, so I respect him for that. And I hope he has a good year. I have no ill will towards him, but that is who he is, guys. I can't really say any more than that.
Yeah, I got to get out of here, guys.
Okay.
Got some stuff to do, but thank you for tuning in. Like I said, join the Patreon page by now. I don't know what you're doing with yourself. Hit that like, subscribe button. My man over here is an excellent co-host and enjoy doing these Texas things with him. And we will be here every Saturday that Texas plays with the post-game show. So tune in and hope y'all enjoy.
And we'll see you this Saturday, guys. Please hit that like button. Like you said, please subscribe. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you, guys. Hook 'em. That will be it for today.